welcome everyone. My name is Glenda Dawson, and I have LD here, and we're Glenda's Dragon's Den. Uh, you are seeing us on the Conscious Awakening Network on Roku TV, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, and we also streaming on YouTube and many other streaming platforms. We want to take this moment to say thank you for following us, for being here week after week, and just being here present to show support to all of our guests. And tonight, we have a wonderful, wonderful person, soul, who
Oh,
has.
you're gonna make me blush again.
Not you.
Oh,
Not you. Not you.
I should have known.
Yeah, not even. And she is wonderful. She.
Yeah, that would be my clue.
Yeah, that would have been your clue. And she will tell us all about herself. Emily, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'll give you guys jazz hands one more time. I'm really excited to be here with you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being had.
Yeah. I feel especially honored that we get to come together during the celestial alignment. We were talking about all of the cosmic energy at play. So thank you for intuitively making that alignment happen for me. And I'm excited to activate your audience today with the Akashic records, and we're going to have a good time.
Yes, we are. So, tell us about yourself, how you got to where you are.
Well, I am Emily Harrison, founder director of the Akashic Academy, and I've lived many lives in this lifetime before I got to founder director of the Akashic Academy, which is a modern day mystery school. So I'll share with you all a little bit more about my journey. And I also want to invite those of you listening. I'm hearing, this is not me telling you that I'm crazy. This is usually how I indicate, oh, I hear messages from spirit coming in right now. What I hear indicating right now from my guides is that many of you who are tuning in and listening, you're also wisdom keepers. You hold a very special lineage and legacy to bring back to the planet. And many of us are born into everyman kind of circumstances. Glenda and I got to chat with LD2 a little before the show, and Glenda was sharing with me that she feels mostly awake. Like when she came into this life, she was very awake. That is not the case for me. And I know that a lot of Glenda, you were like a predecessor that cleared the way for those of us who are coming in the next wave. And what I find is so many of us are not coming in turned on, and we have to go through the process of remembering how to wake up in real time. Mm-hmm. So I just invite you to notice how your body responds to my story and allow that to be an activation or a transmission to where you maybe feel like, oh, yeah, I can resonate. Oh, maybe I can do this too. Oh, anytime you have those moments, that's really something shifting and turning on within your DNA. So I promise this is going to be the abridged version, but I am going to start from the very beginning of where I was born. I was born in a small town in Missouri, right on the Mississippi River, about 3,000 people. And okay, so I think we're all born with psychic senses. Were they necessarily turned on? Yeah, maybe they were on a little bit when I was a little kid, but I shut them off reasonably quickly because it's not cool to have things that are really different about you. And I remember being probably in the 6th grade at the bus stop with my friend Lisa Niemeyer. And I get the courage one day to tell Lisa, hey, I think I can make the leaves over there in the tree move. Telekinesis, right? I'm like, watch this. And she basically told me what an idiot I was, that was just the wind blowing. And so any skill that I had was definitely shut off at that point. I gave up psychic skills for being a good girl and going to church with my mom. And my mom was a Sunday school teacher. So we were all up in church Sunday morning, Sunday night. I was going to church camp, witnessing to my friends, and I'm a Gemini. So at nighttime, I was also sneaking out of my house and out with the boys and drinking in my small town. So growing up in this environment was maybe like what a lot of you have experienced. There was a lot of doctrine in my life that my soul didn't necessarily align with, but I didn't have a lot of other choices to explore spirituality. And I went through school, grade school, high school, graduated. I went to college at University of Missouri, Columbia, and it was like every step along the way of my life, I was falling more and more into line in the box, what society said I was supposed to do. And the more depressed I was getting, the more rebellious I felt, the more I just didn't really like my life. I was not enjoying my experience. And I remember driving home from college one afternoon. I lived off campus and I had my first, what I wouldn't have called it a download then, but I would call it a download now, where there was this information, this intelligence that I realized with my body, with like every cell inside of my body. I had always heard that, life is yours. You can do whatever you want to with it. But yet I wasn't doing what I wanted to with it. I was still taking the steps to fall into line like I felt like I should be. And at this stoplight, zoning out a little bit, the realization of if you want to do something different, Emily, do it. Like now's the time. And Glenda, this is really interesting because I wasn't necessarily an actress in my like I was the Christmas angel in the snow play or the snow play. That's all. I actually lost out on the role of Bunny Sue, so I didn't really feel like this was my thing, acting, right? But at that moment in the stoplight, all of a sudden my life made sense. I'm like, I'm quitting school and going to Hollywood. I'm going to be an actress. And that's what I did. I pulled the plug on life there in small town Missouri, and I went to Los Angeles, where how many of you out there have read The Alchemist, by the way? Type in Alchemist in the comments if you read this book. So one of the themes inside of The Alchemist is beginner's luck. I definitely had beginner's luck. And it's kind of a way that you know that you're on the right path is you have some beginner's luck along the way, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I had beginner's luck and then it started tanking right away. And yeah, Bitha says she's read The Alchemist. That's awesome. So what I noticed was I would get scripts to go in for auditions. And I was really good in my head. Like when I was practicing just by myself and reading my lines, man, I'm like, there's no way I'm not getting this job. Right. Of course I'm going to be the best that they see. And then I would go in the room and I would absolutely suck. Like I would get nervous. My voice didn't even sound like my own voice. And so even at that young age of 19, I realized, man, I got to do something quickly to get better here. And so what I did was I began to cultivate my subtle energy body. I began to do things that allowed me to have more control over my own subtle energy. So what that looked like was meditation, Tai Chi, Qigong, yoga, things that really allowed me to tap in more deeply. And the more I did this, the more acting jobs I got. So the more acting jobs I got, the more I meditated so that I could continue to get more acting jobs. And anybody out there who has found a devotion to meditation for whatever reason, you know that when you begin to turn your awareness inward and expand the consciousness, you're going to hit a point where that magic is going to have a life of its own. And I'd been in Hollywood for about 20 years at this point, but was an absolute sponge groupie for anything metaphysical, anything quantum, because it was expanding me and it was helping me in at that point, my chosen path. But what I noticed was the more I was helping myself and the better I got at my own craft and the more this was helping me, I'm like, I want to help other people with this. And I naturally wanted to help other people along the way in their journey, but I had no idea how. I was not trained in anything. And one day a friend from the neighborhood, he's a friend now. He wasn't necessarily a friend then. It was just because this is LA, right? You got neighbors. It's like, hey, you don't really have deep conversations. But he was walking by and he wasn't walking. He was limping by, walking his dog, limping down the street. And I said, Daniel, what happened to you? And as I'm seeing him limp down the street, I realized, man, I haven't seen him out walking his dog for a long time. And here he is again. He's limping. And he said, oh, Emily, I had a terrible accident and I'm not healing very well. And so I said, do you want to come over for some energy healing? And then I was just like, what did I just say? I am not an energy healer. I am an actress. I was like, oh God, I hope he says no. And he said yes. And I'm like, what am I going to do? Like, I don't even know. I guess I'm going to wing it. I guess I'm going to act like an energy healer. So he like, cue the laugh track, LD. I'm glad you did.
That was good.
And so he comes over, puts his dog away, comes over, and I sit him down. I prop his leg up on a garden stool and this tuning fork. I've had this tuning fork for a long time. My mama gave this to me. And I'm waving the tuning fork around his ankle. And I've got these big headphones on his ears, the big Sony headphones playing the solfeggio scale music. And he just kind of closes his eyes and goes out. And I'm thinking, if my husband comes home right now, I'm going to have so much explaining to do. Like, this is not how we roll. And then Daniel's father, who had passed away, came into my awareness, into my imagination. And I want to tell this story in terms of how I experienced it at that point. Because for those of you out there who are stepping up into your gift, your mission here on the planet, I want you to know how awkwardly I fumbled into this. And it doesn't have to look like you know everything and exactly what you're doing in the beginning. Okay. So when I say his father who had passed came into my awareness, it was like in my imagination, all of a sudden I'm like, oh, something's off. Someone's here. And being an actress for 20 years, improv, it's a particular style of acting where it's non-scripted. But for example, okay, LD, play with me. If I hand you you have to take it, right? And yes, right? We have to play along. You can't play stupid like, oh, I don't know what's happening here.
Right.
So there's a play back and forth with the imagination. I know I gave him a rotten one. Sorry about the rotten apple, LD. Just wanted to make sure you were, playing the right scene with me. So into my imagination comes his father who had passed. And I'd seen enough episodes of Long Island Medium. Like, I guess I'm supposed to talk to him. And the talking sort of felt like that improv game that LD and I just played, where I'm asking a question and then I'm imagining that I'm hearing the answer back. And I'm just going with whatever's coming into my imagination. I'm not judging it. But I was a rookie. So the first question I ask is, what is your name? And names can be challenging to get. So, and here's the other lesson I learned from Spirit that day was that it's not always a clear answer back and forth. Spirit or beings who have passed will talk to you in your frame of reference. So when I asked, what's your name? He answered Bob, 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 but not Bob, but a J name. I'm like, well, that's clear. Thanks, Bob, but not Bob, but a J name. But my father-in-law's name was Bob, so I had a familiarity with that name. And it was my clairvoyance. I saw big bubble letters in my mind, B-O-B. But then there was like an X through it, but not Bob, but a J name. So again, just sharing from what it felt like in that perspective. So any of you who are having some of these moments that might not feel as smooth, like when Glenda talks about her experiences and, as you hear more seasoned healers and teachers talk about their experiences, it can seem really smooth. It wasn't smooth going along the way. So
it's not always smooth, period. Even for someone like me, it's not always smooth.
Yeah. So we have to do a lot of decoding sometimes. Definitely. And that's what I was finding with Bob, but not Bob, but a J name. So then Bob, but not Bob says, well, I saved my son. And I said, from the accident? He said, yes. I'm like, well, you did a shitty job. That's one thing I didn't ask before we get on, if I could say bad words. But feel free to beat that out if I can't.
You can.
It's fine.
That's that rebel in me that went to Sunday school, but saying the bad words. So I said, you did a shitty job. His ankle is shattered and he's not healing properly. Okay, Bob, you saved him. Okay. And then the last thing Bob, but not Bob, showed me was, again, in my clairvoyance, two hands coming together. And then The meditation was over. Daniel took the headphones off. I was finishing my conversation with Bob, noticing Daniel was done, like, you feel better? Great. Bye. Bringing him off home. And I go inside and I'm washing my hands, and it's just like this gnawing. Hey, let him know I was here. Let him know I was here. So I reached back out and I said, all right, Daniel, I am not a medium. You know I'm an actress, not a medium. But I do feel like your dad came through in that meditation, and I feel like he shared some things. So if you're open to it, I'll share with you what he told me. And of course, Daniel was right back over at my house, and we sat down to have the conversation. I said, all right, what was your dad's name? And he said, my dad's name was Alan. And I'm like, oh, well, I got that wrong, because he told me Bob, but not Bob, but a J name, but a short name, like Bob, but a J name. And Daniel's face went white, and he said, my dad's name was Alan J. Jay. He went by his middle name. And then my jaw dropped a little bit too, because I didn't know that I was so good at this. I'm like, whoa, that really happened. Okay. And then I said, well, he also wants you to know that he saved you in the accident. I told him that he didn't do a very good job, but he's insisting. And Daniel said, well, Emily, here's what happened. I had been experiencing vertigo, and I was on the second story of a jewelry store in California, and I started feeling the dizziness, and I didn't want to fall and crash in the middle of the jewelry store. So I stepped outside to get some air, and I collapsed on the balcony. And when the paramedics found me, they said 2 more inches and you would have fallen down 2 flights of concrete stairs. Maybe not even be alive, probably paralyzed. And again, we were both like, whoa, okay, so Bob did save him. And then I shared the last image that I saw of 2 hands coming together. And at this point, Daniel started to cry. And he told me that he and his dad had been estranged for many decades, but had reconciled in the last years of his life. And that he was actually holding his dad's hand when his dad passed. And that made me start crying too. And at this point, there was no doubt in my mind that once we train ourselves to open up our extrasensory perception, there's so much more that humans can tap into. And that was the moment that my timeline shifted. I knew, Glenda, that there was no story I could tell, no way to inspire people more than telling the story of human potential. And Hollywood was done for me. At that point, I knew that I wanted to help people expand their life, heal their life. And I didn't exactly know what modality it was, but I literally ran inside from that conversation. And I dug through my acting portfolio. I had just been at an audition a couple days before, and I picked up a Conscious Life magazine when I was in the city. And I'm flipping through this thing like mad. And I'm like, Reiki, no. Yoga, no. Akashic records, that's it. Because I had an interest in everything. And I felt like the records holding all information forward and backward through time would be the way that I could not only train myself and remember knowledge that my soul had indoctrinated in for many, many lifetimes, but I could help other people remember as well. And so I went through the Akashic record training, 3 levels of training. And as soon as I finished that mentorship, that program, I knew that while I turned out to be really good at reading the Akashic records, I didn't want to read records for people. I can, and we can play with that a little bit later today, but my real mission is teaching people. And I went back to my Bible thumping growing up years where Jesus said, give a man a fish, feed him for a day, teach a man to fish, and feed him for a lifetime. And I felt really connected to this. All of a sudden, the mission was as clear to me that day as it was in the previous timeline when I decided, oh, I'm packing up Missouri and moving to Hollywood. No, it is, I am here to return the technology of the Akashic records to this planet so that we can heal our karma, tap into our unique genius, because everybody has something unique to contribute here on the planet, and learn to innovate, because as we bring the new world into existence, we need new paradigms for relationships, for money, for currency, for education. I mean, literally everything, our medical system, everything needs a massive makeover, and it's up to us to do it. We're not, it's not okay for us to sit around and wait for the quote leaders. We are the leaders, and the leader means I go first.
Mm-hmm. Very true.
So after graduating from my own training, I started the Akashic Academy, the mystery school, where I have been training visionaries and thought leaders how to leave the world of ordinary thought and tap into superconscious intelligence. So for those of you who are learning about the Akashic records or maybe hearing about it for the first time here tonight, let me just get us all on the same page. The records hold all information forward and backward through time, so past, present, all potential futures, from a neutral perspective, meaning a perspective of unconditional love and zero judgment. And every human on the planet has the ability to read the records. The key to being able to read your records, couple simple things that you need to know. For the sake of tonight's broadcast, here's what you need to know. You've got to be a vibrational match, because that's how the energy is transferred. It's transferred through our imagination and our psychic senses, but we have to be a vibrational frequency match to that state of unconditional love and zero judgment to receive the intelligence. And then the other important thing to know is that the records work by invitation only, which doesn't mean only certain people are invited into their records. What that means is that we must invite forward the intelligence that we're looking for. So we must ask questions. The records will only give you information that you are ready to receive. How do they know what you're ready to receive? Well, you ask the question. You are able to put together the thought and invite forward the intelligence. And so the reason that we all want to get good at using the Akashic records is, one, humans have the ability to self-heal. It's within our DNA to do so. And we have shut ourselves off from this, but not everybody. As a collective, though, we've closed down this potentiality, and it's time to open it back up for ourselves. The other big reason that I want to encourage you all to tap into the records is that we are playing a severely dumbed down game of humanity right now. The human genome is one of the most spectacular, powerful, creative genomes of technology in the entire galaxy, and we have forgotten this. And so it's time for us to wake up to the truth of who we are, so that we have access to all of our creativity as we innovate and call forward the new earth here on Mother Earth.
Mm-hmm. Very true.
So the tease I was running for this on several of our profiles and pages, there was a comedian who used to start off, every record ever recorded since recording began, Lithuanian language records. That's who you remember it now, right? But that's how I teased it, because, you know, in the brief moment of what this was, it's about every record ever recorded since recording began. So thank you.
Yes. Every detail of your life, past, present, all possible futures, has been recorded in the Akashic records. And it's not just humans in our lives, right? Everything has an Akashic record. This show has an Akashic record. Crystals, animals, locations, intergalactic, celestial bodies, like everything has an Akashic record. And how exciting is it that this intelligence, this technology is returning to the planet, and we get this opportunity to explore and remember our connection with this incredible library of intelligence.
And evolve with it.
Yeah. Well, you know, I mean, it definitely is going to evolve us, LD, but I think that this is just like one of the coolest downloads that I've gotten from the records. The records shared with me that access to the Akashic records will level hierarchy on the planet. And I said, all right, what do you mean by that? And okay, well, I am going to use the T word, but I'm not going to really talk about politics here, I promise.
Okay.
I was watching on Netflix the documentary Hack. And when Donald Trump was running for president, his campaign paid so much money to Cambridge Analytics, this is a data collection company, that it actually shifted the global ranking of resources here on our planet from gold and oil being the most valuable to data being the most valuable. And I thought, oh my gosh, when everyone on the planet has access to the same information, the same intelligence, no one can lie to each other. And considering that intelligence or data is the most valuable thing on the planet, when we all have unlimited free access, this is going to level hierarchy in the way that we have known and experienced it on the planet. And I was like, wow.
Yeah.
And oneness reigns supreme.
And oneness reigns supreme.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How cool is that?
It's really cool. Another thing pinging in my field that I would love to share is some really cool information about why the Akashic records are becoming so apparent in everyone's awareness. So here's a cool thing about how humans work. We need to have a physical template or experience with something before we can fully wrap our head around it. So up until recently in our human history, this idea, this esoteric idea of the Akash, and Akash is a Sanskrit word that means ether, ether being primordial energy. And we find this idea, this concept of the Akashic records written through all religions. I mean, it goes as far back as being in the Sumerian tablets. And so I talked about growing up in Christianity, being a Southern Baptist, all up in church. In the Bible, it talks about the book of life.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I was brought up to believe that the book of life was something that Jesus wrote your name in when you came forward in church one day when the pastor gave the invitation. And that always seemed a little weird. I'm like, doesn't Jesus have a secretary that writes your name in? Fine, whatever. I guess Jesus is writing names in there. This is really such a more expanded version of data that's really been recorded about our life. But this idea of the Akashic records, the book of life, superconscious intelligence, we see this reference throughout a lot of different avenues. But why it's becoming so mainstream right now is because the internet.
Mm-hmm.
So the internet is that concept, that template that is helping humans to understand how this amazing library works. And similar to the Akashic records, and we have to ask questions, think about the internet. You don't just turn the internet on and then all of a sudden you have the information that you're looking for. You got to use a search engine like Google or something that is going to extract the intelligence for you and then categorize it for you. So the more specific that you can get with the search in Google, the more specific the information is that comes back. It's the same way with the Akashic records, is the more specific we can ask questions,
Mm-hmm.
the more specific we can get the intelligence back.
However, the Akashic records don't have an agenda.
The records are completely neutral. Yes.
Exactly.
It's
unlike
not,
Google.
Yeah, it's not an exact, apples and apples. Just to here's another apple for you, LD. I promise this one is not rotten.
Oh, come on. You can do it. No, but it's kind of as an example because
As an example.
everybody Googles one
Mhm.
way or another.
Yeah.
Whether it's the 84-year-old who has finally learned how to put in the information and get whatever he's looking for, to young kids, 3-year-olds, they all know how to do it. So it's important to have an example so they could have as a reference.
Yeah.
Right.
Are there any questions? Are any questions pinging in your all's mind? Any questions out there in the audience about the records or how they work?
Right now nobody's willing to put up I think they're just watching. And yeah, it's very interesting.
What pings in my mind is what happens when the hierarchy is level.
Ooh, good question. Well, okay, the first thing that I'm getting is oneness reigns supreme, like you already said. Let me tap in and see what else comes through. Okay. So what the guides are saying is that at that point, there are no excuses for not stepping into one's genius. It becomes a requirement that every person must step up and really begin to curate their own level of creativity and understand themselves more dynamically. But the hierarchy as it's in place now creates the opportunity for some people just to tap out.
Right.
For some people to become imprisoned to their old thought
Got it.
processes and not have to do the work. But for a while, it'll be really challenging for humanity, especially those who haven't learned how to. When I say do the work, I mean doing the work means looking inward and taking responsibility for our own shadow and owning that. You can't blame anybody else for anything anymore. And so that idea of all of us stepping into our divine responsibility is going to be a must when the hierarchy is leveled.
Particularly in our current paradigm of codependency.
Yes,
It's going to get interesting.
it is. That was a great question. That was fun. What else you got?
So, how do people learn about this? How do they get to you?
Well, come check out the akashicacademy.com. There are opportunities to dive into training. I have curated a repeatable method that teaches people how to tap into the Akashic records. So and that's what I really feel is my unique area of genius. I'm a great teacher. I have been teaching my stuffed animals since I was that little girl back in Missouri. There's always been a part of me that likes to teach. I like to make it fun. And I like to take esoteric, big, chunky, esoteric subjects and bring them down into real practicality about how humans can use them. So in the training that I created, there are 3 levels of training. The first level of training is just learning the repeatable process, learning how to tap in, what you need to do to raise your vibrational frequency. We deal with things like blocks, what to do if you feel like you're not getting anything. One of the biggest challenges that people have in the beginning is trusting themselves. How do I know that this isn't just me talking to myself? Well, sometimes it's going to sound like you talking to yourself, right? So helping people over those hurdles is what we really do in the beginning so that you can begin to trust this process. Then let me just take a dramatic pause there. So if you want to interject or say anything.
Nah.
Well, personally, one of my near-death experiences gave me a taste of omniscience. So, yeah. So, to me, this is all a wonderful gateway. Do you see it as the gateway to 5D?
I do see it as the gateway to 5D. I do. Because I feel like in 5D, we have abundance. We have health. Nobody lies to each other. Lying isn't even a concept that we have. There was one, obviously there are so many different characteristics of 5D. Unique cultivated genius. All things that are very important. Psychic skills turned on. All things that are very important and happening in the 5D, that the Akashic records provide methodology, training that's repeatable, that works for everyone, that helps us to bridge this gap. Right. So, but there are more phases to the process, and I feel like this is going to be a great next conversation. I know LD is going to have some things to say about this one. Bring them on, friend, when they pop into your mind. But when we can tap into infinite intelligence, this can be used against each other if we are still in a state of ego. So how do we guarantee that this is used for the highest good of ourself and all of humanity? Self-love. the more you love yourself, the more access you are going to get in the space of your Akashic records. And they are in direct correlation, because the more I love myself and I honor the God energy within me, I'm going to honor it within you, Glenda, and within you, LD. And that is what ensures that we all use this to collaborate rather than to compete, which is another big paradigm shift that we experience in the 5D. There's collaboration over competition. And so the intermediate phase, or phase 2 of learning to read the records in the training, has to do with clearing out the areas where you don't love yourself and you haven't forgiven yourself and you don't love other people around you and you're still ticked off at your parents for this and you haven't forgiven that person for that and you don't understand why you're such a victim in life, right? It clears all of this stuff out, returns our divine responsibility, because we understand why our soul chose the lessons that we chose in this lifetime. And it brings us back into a state of knowing the truth of who we are, which is the gateway to loving ourselves unconditionally.
Well, this takes me to my favorite piece from the business of show, as I like to refer to it. A little movie called The Wizard of Oz.
Yes.
And 2 words, Surrender Dorothy.
Oh.
And the all different meanings of that concept, because we are taught not to surrender.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we are taught to try and maintain our own unique identity here in the West.
Mm-hmm.
And the key is to really let go of that and allow the evolution.
Yes. Yes. That's beautiful. Thank you for that. I love The Wizard of Oz. I just want that to land for everybody, because I'm going to take us in a slightly different direction with The Wizard of Oz. But that's surrendering identity is challenging until we give ourselves over to it. And then we get to reap the benefits and the rewards of knowing ourselves from a different perspective. But we can't know ourselves from this divine perspective while we're holding on to the human perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And the box.
Yeah.
With our name on it.
Exactly.
That somebody else gave us.
Yes. Yes. And that's that would be another beautiful metaphor to describe the Akashic records, is it allows us to move from our human down here up into God consciousness, so we can see from this perspective, this higher perspective. And that changes the game.
Mm-hmm.
Changes the game.
Yes, it does.
Okay, so on my retreats, we talked a little about my retreats backstage. I'll bring the audience up to date on my retreats. So I take visionaries and thought leaders. After you've trained in the records with me, you get an invitation to go into Mount Shasta. And Bill Holman and the Mitchell Hedges Crystal Skull, which we won't go down too far of a tangent there, but this is a phenomenal, I don't even know what to call it, quantum anomaly here on our planet, the crystal skulls. But this experience into Mount Shasta is where we activate into our mission, and we call in extraterrestrials, which I've had ET contact on every single one of my events. We have, there are photographs that we take on the mountain in the vortexes with the craziest light codes and fairies and things coming in. So if you're looking for a visceral interaction with ascended masters, with interdimensional beings, Mount Shasta is definitely a place where it can happen for you. But on my retreats, on movie night, what movie do you think I show, LD?
Could it be, I don't know, The Wizard of Oz?
Wizard of Oz, but I don't play it with the sound on.
Right.
I turn the sound all the way down and I play Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon. Have you heard of this? This is a crazy urban legend, but it's not an urban legend. It's really true. Have you guys done that before?
No.
Okay. So if you turn down the volume on The Wizard of Oz and the old MGM beginning, there's the black and white, the lion, he goes, roar, roar, roar. And on that third roar, if you hit play on your CD player, the Pink Floyd Dark Side of the Moon, that album syncs up to the nanosecond like it's the soundtrack playing over the Wizard of Oz. It will leave your jaw on the ground. I don't even know how to describe the mathematical synchronicity of how this aligns. And the even crazier is the movie is longer than the album. So the album plays all the way through, but then it starts over again and it does it again. And what I tell people is when you begin to train in the Akashic records, the same thing happens. Whatever it is that you are learning about in the space of the records begins to synchronize in your life. And you begin to see evidence of whatever the records are teaching. All of a sudden, it begins to happen right then in that moment in your life. And it is one of the most magical experiences. Makes you feel like a kid in a candy store again. Really exciting work. And then the last phase of my training is about using the records to help each person unlock their own unique genius, their highest levels of creativity, so that we can create the life that we want to experience. You know, some of us are here to create legacy on the planet. But whether you're here to create at a big scale or to innovate inside your own home, it's as above, so below. It is all equally important. We all need these levels of creativity to make the shifts and changes that are being invited on our planet at this time.
So we are at that point in the show where, to sync up with the last 5 minutes, should we need to do that, you offered to work with Glenda.
Yes, let's do it. You ready, Glenda?
No pressure, hon.
No pressure.
No pressure.
Yes, I give you permission.
All right, so I'm just going to tap into your records and thank you for that permission, Glenda. And you know how it works. You want to ask questions to bring forward the intelligence. So whenever you're ready, fire away.
Okay. We're going to go, and I'm going to ask the last time that I had a near-death experience.
Mm-hmm.
I was told 2 things. I could only remember one. So I would like to have access to that second one.
Okay. The 2 things that came up in my mind were, and again, this is where we get to start decoding some.
Right.
And if you don't fully remember, then I'll just ask the guides to open up the veils for you. But the first thing I saw when you talked about near-death experience, I instantly went into a death on Mars, or a near-death experience you had on Mars. And it felt like the comets, the meteors raining down, and the chaos. And there was fear and separation. And there was a connection there with memory. And so then when you said, I don't remember what the other thing was that they said to me, it was like that word of memory was sinking. I was in the memory of this Martian experience. And then you said, I don't remember what else they said. And then the first thing I heard was that you are enough. You are enough. And there is another chapter to your mission here on the planet at this time, that it's almost like you're waiting for certain pieces to align, and they're just, you are enough, you are enough, you are enough. My kitty's coming over and joining the broadcast. There's a healing modality within you too that doesn't exist here on the planet yet at this time, that you're being invited to call forward. Why are you giggling like that?
Because that's the part I remembered.
Oh, that's the part you remembered, was the healing modality part?
The healing modality is something that I have always known.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't exist there.
Yeah.
So,
Well, it's time, is what they're saying now. They're like, yep, it's time. It's time. It's time.
okay.
Okay. If there are other questions that you have, feel free to fire away. I feel that they're moving that into completionist in terms of what they're telling me right now.
Mm-hmm. And they're funny. Let's see.
I told you he was joining the show. This is Apollo, everybody.
Hi, Apollo. Oh, okay. I speak to animals, so
You? So he doesn't always join the show like this.
yeah.
I'm curious. Can I ask you, what's he saying?
He wants to be fed more.
Okay.
He
Have you
likes
put him
to
on a diet?
He likes to eat.
Yeah.
Well, he does like to eat, and I feed him twice a day, dry and wet food, and he's a little cat. It seems like enough, but sometimes he meows at me for more, and I feed him more, and that feels very resonant to me.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
He wants more of the wet food.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Can do.
And after all, what else is there for cat? Apparently sex isn't an option, so
there is one more question.
Okay.
I have right now plan A and plan B.
Okay.
Which plan is it that is best in my best interest and in best interest of what my mission is?
Yeah, they said plan C. It's plan C.
C.
So plan C, because neither plan A or plan B feel like they're right on the money yet. It's like there needs a little adjustment to it. And it's like you're going to feel it's either a hell yes or it's a hell no, the guides are saying. And so you haven't hit that full body hell yes yet with either one of the plans, which is why they're saying plan C. Mm-hmm. They're also saying, look at subtraction. It's not going to be like there's something that needs to be added to either one of the plans. It's a subtraction. And what I think the subtraction is within you of where are you holding yourself back and playing small? Because you've been conditioned to do that. And so that's what feels safe and comfortable for you. And so once that is removed, then you're going to be able to feel the full body hell yes.
Okay.
And it feels like A-ish.
Okay. I now know.
Cool.
Look out, world.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Truly appreciate that. That was clarification, definitely. So thank you very much. I am
and validation.
And validation, yes.
Beautiful.
So
clarification is great. Validation is essential.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yes, not too many people realize what that healing modality is. Mm-hmm. And they all look at me like, what's up with that? What is it? And it's like, oh, I brought it with me.
And I find that that's one of the things that we need to do to innovate here on the planet. Is it cool actually, I'm going to text my son to say, come get Apollo out of here.
That's okay. Apollo can stay.
He can stay. I just feel like he's meowing at the door.
Yeah, it's all right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you told him he's going to get more food. He wants it now,
No, he did. I'm like, oh, that's exactly what he wants. I can't teach you for 10 more minutes, buddy, because we're still live on the air. This is one of those teenagers. Kids, feed the cats while mom's on the show. Okay, so back to the idea of creating medicine. Mm-hmm. I'll share with you all that in my Hollywood days, I shared with you, I was meditating and I get more jobs, and then I meditate more and I get more jobs. And there was a point along the way in my career where I was offered a job that I didn't really want to take, but I took it. And it wasn't porn. It was a soap opera. Even it was worse than porn. It was a soap opera. And
It was
felt
snake oil.
I felt like I compromised a lot of myself on this soap opera. And I was tired of waiting tables and slinging hash and,
Right.
and so I took the job. And in my process of negotiating with myself that I really wanted this job, I sent everybody back home in small town Missouri, Soap Opera Digest magazine, so they could follow along with my career. And it wasn't 6 months into that stinking contract that they fired me. And there were rumors that I was going to get fired before it even happened. And I remember the day that I got fired. I had a friend come over and we were making lunch. She's like, Em, when are they going to bring you back on the soap? So they had moved my storyline from front burner to back burner because we were getting so much backlash, which basically means they sent my character off to medical school. So I wasn't on every day and I had all this free time. So my friend comes over for lunch and we're making lunch. When are they going to bring you back on the soap? Oh, soon, it's all fine. Ding dong. The doorbell rings. It is the biggest bouquet of flowers. Like I can barely hold this thing. I bring it in. I open the card. The card says, "Thank you for your commitment to this role, but we're recasting the role." So basically, I get fired with flowers in front of my friend. I don't tell him. He's like, "Oh, who are the flowers from?" "Oh, it's from the producers of the show. It says they're going to bring me back really soon, just like we said." And I held it together until he walked out the door. And the second he closed the screen door behind him, 26-year-old Emily collapsed on my apartment floor there in Hollywood and just sobbed.
Mm-hmm.
Because I didn't know how to handle that humiliation and that failure. And what my record showed me was at that point in time, I created a success ceiling on my life. And in order for my business now to take off, I had to remove that success ceiling. So once my guide showed me where it was, I said, all right, how do I remove it? And they gave me a totally made up protocol that I had never heard of before, but it worked. And this is what they showed me. They first brought into my awareness knowledge from the Chinese medicine philosophy that the organs, the soft tissue of the body, stores somatic memory. So I knew my lungs were storing the sadness, my heart unforgiveness, stomach the worry, liver the anger, kidneys the fear. And so I said, great, how do I get it out? They said, tap on it. I loved EFT tapping, but I didn't have to do these specific points, right? They said, just tap right on the organs.
Right.
And they said, use a transmutation tool, an alchemy tool. I knew 2 different ones. I knew Violet Flame, which I did for everything.
Right.
And I knew Ho'oponopono. And I thought, I'll do Ho'oponopono because I do Violet Flame for everything else.
Right.
So it's 5 days, 5 rounds of I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, and thank you on all the organs.
Mm-hmm.
And within 8 months, I had quintupled my income. I had removed that success ceiling and was able to step into the success that was part of this timeline as written in my Akashic records. But I wouldn't have been able to get there if I didn't have that knowledge and intel and guidance along the way in my life.
And if you'd been tied up with your call time every day.
My what time?
Your call time to be on set.
To be on set. Oh, my call time.
Your call time, yes.
Call time.
Your call time, okay?
I didn't understand your accent, friend. Yeah, and being caught in that timeline would have been disastrous to this mission here today.
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And that's what people don't get. You see, everything is opportunity.
Yes.
So we have about 5 minutes left.
Okay. We want to arm wrestle?
I'm sorry?
You want to
Arm wrestle?
I'm not allowed anymore.
Okay.
Not in 3D.
Okay.
But so is there anything that you would like to clarify or drive home in the last few minutes that we have? We put the one side .com up, and I guess that that opens the door to everything else as you have your protocols.
Thank you. Oh, you know what I want to talk about in the last 5 minutes here is the free gift that I want to share with each one of you. And this is a PDF download that is going to help you figure out what your soul mission is. Every single person comes into the planet with a soul mission, and you know it in your childhood. But so many of us forget it, and it doesn't necessarily look like a direct connection. So, for example, for me, I shared with you, I used to teach my stuffed bunnies and stuffed animals and Raggedy Ann and Andy. The teacher in me, that was part of my mission presenting itself. I also wanted to be an astronaut. I also did puppet shows behind my grand piano with sock puppets that I made up. So it's like this idea of all of these different aspects of entertaining and writing. I would play like I had my own business, and I would take orders on the phone, and then I'd run to the back and make whatever painting they were and bring it back, right? So I promise you, you do know within you what your soul mission is. Nobody else can tell you, but you do know, and you have it within you. Now, because not all of us can instantly tap back into our childhood, although start thinking about it and you're going to start getting some pings rolling through before you even hit this button to download. When you download this soul mapping worksheet, I am going to ask you incredibly practical questions that look like, where are you now? Where do you want to be in life? You know how you can get certain bath salts and stones and things that are infused with Reiki energy? This is infused with your Akashic record energy. And as you begin to identify where you are now and where you want to be in life, that timeline is going to begin to consecrate for you. You are going to be, in essence, calling that possibility forward from your Akashic records. In addition to this, now, once you get on your highest timeline, you must be in your genius creativity. We talked about that because your highest timeline is 5D. Hierarchy has fallen, and you are required to be all of who you are. And so there are two very simple questions. I'm not even going to tell you what the questions are. You have to download the worksheet.
Good for you.
There are two really important but simple questions that will reveal to you what your soul mission is. And it might not be a direct revelation of, oh, okay, but these will begin to call forward in your mind ideas that as you weave together these two ideas, your unique purpose of what you're here to do on the planet will become apparent to you.
Very good.
And any additional assistance is available through the website and direct link with you.
Yeah, 100%. If you have a specific question or a specific need, feel free to email me. The contact information is there on the Akashic Academy website as well. And follow along on social media. I have a really strong presence on Facebook and YouTube are probably where I have the biggest audiences, but you can find me on LinkedIn and Instagram as well. And I broadcast a live show. It's actually why I look good on Wednesdays. It was on a Wednesday, because if it wasn't on a Wednesday, I wouldn't look nearly as good. I do a live show every Wednesday. And so you can come on and get activations from your Akashic records on that live show. Consider this your engraved invitation. Be my special guest.
There you go.
Well, thank you so much for sharing so much of yourself and the opportunities that you can activate with us and our audience.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Emily. We'll see you guys next week on Wednesday, 9 p.m. Eastern. See you then. Bye.